Gaps have widened between the tongue and groove lengths of timber, allowing increasing levels of snow inside. The roof of the workshop area of the hut was reclad during the 1997-98 expedition, and the living quarters completed in 2006-07 when the six-person expedition found the huts almost totally buried.
I hadn't been here in October, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I'd seen photographs of times when other people had visited in October, and most of the building was still exposed. But to only see just the very apex of the workshop and the apex of the main hut exposed was just incredible. Since the foundation came on board in about 97, 98, things have been more organised, development of a well-organised conservation management plan, and this is probably the last of the major building work that needed to be done to stabilise the huts themselves.
With approval from the Australian Antarctic Division and the heritage architects engaged by the division, specialist builders have reclad the roof of the main hut with exactly the same dimensions of timber and from the same source, Finland, as Douglas Mawson and his men used nearly 100 years ago. It was painstaking and dangerous work, uncovering the original timber before recladding work could begin.
Just by gentle brushing. If we use soft things like this, we won't damage the fabric of the wood, but we've just got to be very, very careful that nothing is done to damage that wood.
One of the biggest problems was just trying to stop snow and ice getting into the building, because there were various arguments over many years as to whether or not you should even remove the snow and ice. But once it was established that taking ice out wasn't going to damage the environment, and two, just a formal acknowledgement that the snow and ice that was in the building was actually damaging to the building, damaging to structural elements, damaging to materials that were in here as well. It needed to come out, but there's no point taking it out unless you stop more getting in.
And it took nearly 8 weeks, regularly interrupted by blizzards and winds exceeding 300 kilometres per hour. The fragile original timber has been left intact beneath the new protective layer, with a special waterproof fabric used to keep out the moisture, but allowing the hut to breathe from the inside.
And so putting a new roof on it, that's going to help keep the snow and ice out, and therefore it's going to allow the rest of the stuff that's in here to ablate. Very happy with the work that's been done, because we've been able to get all of the roof planes overclad, and they're overclad. I think they're very, very tight, and they've been done in such a way that it's going to provide long-term protection for the original fabric. The way in which this was done by putting a series of battens down, linking those through into the original structural timbers underneath, and then putting a membrane and new boards on top of that, means that any new roof, when this one wears out in 50, 60, 70 years' time, we're just going to be screwing back into non-original timbers. We know that more snow will get in around where the roof joins the walls, and that's got to be explored, but it can only be explored when there's been a decent thaw over summer.
With the roof area virtually sealed from the harsh weather, work has now begun in earnest removing ice and snow from the interior, uncovering thousands of artefacts which require photographing, recording, logging into a database, treating, and then replacing into their original resting place. It will take several years to complete this work.
The second thing, I think, is then to do a really thorough assessment of all of the objects that are in here, with a view to applying some form of conservation treatments to try and prolong their life. If you have a look around here, you'll see some objects that are almost to the point of destruction because they've corroded away. It's an incredibly high humidity environment in here, and so objects do corrode despite the low temperatures. Fortunately, it's low salt, and that applies to all of the fittings as well, structural fittings. And it's not just the hut, there are a series of buildings around here. The whole place is effectively an archaeological site, and so it needs to be retained, in its current form. I guess we've all got this natural interest in history and just seeing how people live, and effectively this is a time capsule, because Mawson left it. There were still things left here that give us just a bit of a view into what the life was like for those people at that particular time. I mean, if you look at the work that Mawson and his team did, I don't think it can be really underestimated in terms of its importance, because it was the first major overseas scientific expedition Australians undertook post-Federation, and the work that they did basically laid the basis of Australia's claim to 42% of the Antarctic territories as well. The importance of it and the significance of it, in that light alone, warrants preservation of it. But also the fact that it is only one of 6 huts from that heroic era of Antarctic exploration demands we look after it, and take all of that into account. And we've also got obligations under the Antarctic Treaty. We've got to preserve this place. It's a declared historic site.
Since its establishment, the Foundation has raised nearly $5 million and sent 6 major expeditions to Commonwealth Bay. But annual maintenance on the huts must continue while the artefacts are treated. The Foundation has the full support of the federal government and the Australian Antarctic Division, which provides full logistical and operational support for all its expeditions. But expeditions to the Antarctic are expensive, and millions of dollars are required to ensure that not only are the huts conserved as part of Australian history, but also the artefacts left behind in 1913 by Mawson and his team. Australia's Governor-General, Major General Michael Jeffrey, is supporting the conservation efforts by becoming patron. But funds are still required. The Foundation has launched a national and international campaign to raise a minimum of $3 million for a special fund to ensure regular visits to maintain the huts and properly conserve the artefacts. We seek your support in helping to ensure these fragile buildings are a lasting monument to Mawson and his team of 17 young men. This is the site where Australia's Antarctic heritage began, and it should be preserved for all Australians.